Di sini kita bersama satu komuniti mengurus strata penuh harmoni.
Welcome to Strata Connect. What expert says. Hi, I'm Justin here.
And I'm Sugi here.
Due to the current challenges of land scarcity, Malaysia, we are having a lot of strata scheme development ongoing. So this is one of the challenging moments also for a lot of purchasers.
That's true. Because when we're embarking into the journey to get our starter title, we are actually facing with quite lots of problems.
True. So problems like types of titles, whether are these properties suitable for you or not. So a lot of people may not know the duties being a strata title proprietor or even owner. So today we would like to have a lawyer from Ling and Yileong. Okay, we are honored to have him here to share with us more information, more insights and knowledge about strata title. So I would like to introduce our guest speaker today, lawyer Louis Ling from Ling and Yileong. He has more than 10 years experience in real estate dealings and transactions. He also managed more than 300 strata titles perfection. So, lawyer Louis, thank you for coming to our session today.
Yes, Luis, welcome to Strata Connect.
Thanks for having me. Hi everyone, I'm Louis. Just a disclaimer, I am not an expert because we are all learning, and I think today is just a sharing on how we can learn together.
Yeah, Luis, can you share with us what do you mean by strata title or strata scheme?
Alright, okay, maybe what we can do is we can bring the audience to the history on how strata scheme actually come about. Alright, so firstly in Malaysia, we started off with the National Land Code, which everyone is a bit more familiar. It all started off in 1965, and then we adopted the torrent system. So after that, because National Land Code is mainly focusing on landed property, which after a while, the government notices that it doesn't really help with all the high-rise building. That's why in the past there was issue with, all those townhouses or buildings with 4 to 5 stories,
Which is not well maintained.
Which is not well maintained, right? So later on, then came the first Strata Titles Act, which thereafter it grew from Strata Titles Act, which was only for high-rise, and after that in 2007, which is when they started to amended it to include also landed strata.
Why it has become common in Malaysia when it's come to strata scheme?
Alright, mainly it's because Malaysia is a developing country. So due to urbanization, the major parts of the cities, the land became, like what you all mentioned just now, scarce. And due to such scarcity, there is no avenue for developers or even government to continue to just build landed property. And that is why strata scheme came about with all the high-rise properties.
How the ownership difference between strata property and landed property?
For strata property and landed property, the main difference that I can share is the one thing, which is the payment of maintenance fee, which is a duty by all parcel owners. So that's one main component that makes the strata scheme work, because every owners are all contributing together to this strata property in order to manage and maintain the building. Whereas in landed property, we are also exposed to, I think when we were young, we will start to notice that all our landed property, they start to have gated and guarded on their own.
Rukun tetangga, or
Yes.
maybe we call it the resident associations.
Correct. So with this rukun tetangga, people are getting more and more aware and concerned about security and safety, but there is no legal, I would say there is no legal or law to actually govern how the rukun tetangga actually manages this whole landed properties. Yeah, and they are not bound. I mean, your neighbors are not bound to participate in this rukun tetangga.
Yeah, because the neighbor may ask that they will only pay for the quick rent and the cukai pintu, correct? Cukai pintu and cukai taksiran. So these are the common commitments that non-strata owners, they are bound to pay.
Okay, but how about some landed property? Okay, so that I see, like what you said here, okay, they also pay maybe a minimum amount of fees where they share on the securities to hire the security, or maybe the to get the barrier gates on all those things. Is it they are entitled for this strata title?
No, because the land, how, okay, so to go back on how strata title differentiates with landed property is, number one, when a development is being built, they will then decide whether this property would fall under the Strata Titles Act or is just under the individual title. So when they build it, for example, some development, when I mentioned about landed strata, they actually built on the concept of gated and guarded community, right? So we now focuses on gated and guarded because you are mentioning about those landed which are not under strata, but they are also paying these security fees, right? The difference would be, like I mentioned, they are not, the owners are not bound to pay. That's number one. Number two is it is on the goodwill of the community themselves. So in the event, in a legal perspective, is if let's say today the owner of this property, they decide to sell off this property to a new party, there is no avenue for even the rukun tetangga to claim back for any amount due for these security fees. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What if let's say that gated guarded, before the property owner purchased that gated guarded property, there is a DMC, which is the deed of mutual covenants, are completed or signed by the purchasers. Okay, for a taman example, gated guarded, because I encountered such case before, which is RA was formed, all right, and the purchasers over there, they actually are obligated to contribute to the RA because in the deed of mutual covenant, they have already signed that they agree to pay a service fee. They don't call maintenance fee, they call a service fee. So of course, these fees is mainly to contribute for the security guards services, and of course maybe some minor cleanliness or pest control. All right. So is this one of the only way for gated guarded? If let's say they sign DMC, then they are bounded, and the RA can take action against those defaulters who do not pay the fees.
The first thing is, this is on non-strata properties, right?
Non-strata.
Right. So for non-strata property, because it's not governed under the act, like you mentioned, it's a DMC between the owners of that taman,
The first purchaser, with the developer.
with the developer. And with that, how do they bind the next purchaser? It is different from a strata title, because under strata title, it doesn't follow the individual owner, it follows the property.
Understand?
But for the DMC, it's a agreement between the owners and the developer, and it depends then how do they draft it to bind the subsequent owners. So there will be some issues when they want to enforce it.
Yeah,
Louis,
this is a very good insight.
Yeah, Louis, can you share with us some advantages and disadvantages of staying or living in this strata scheme?
All right. So just like when I mentioned about the main advantages is because everyone contributes to this building maintenance and sinking fund. That is a sword, and also it's like an advantage and also a disadvantage.
It's a double sword.
Correct.
Double
Because
sword.
every time when everyone, either they contribute, then the next question is how do they then manage the fund, right? So when the fund is not managed properly, it becomes a disadvantage because owners pay, but then the building is not being maintained, right? And also the difficulty is some owners pay, some owners don't pay, right? When they don't pay, then similarly the building is not maintained. So in that sense, it is good that they force everyone to pay, but it's also because that when people don't pay, that's when the building is not maintained. You come to your when building is not maintained, your value goes down. All those things will come along with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Understand.
Thank you for sharing the insights. Maybe we take a break first before we continue with our second part of the questions. Please stay tuned with us after the break.
Welcome back. What Expert says. Please do follow us, like us, and subscribe our channel. So I have another question for lawyer Louis over here. So most of the common layman, all right, we always listen and hear about strata title. So our question here is, what is strata title? What is individual title? And why is it important for property owners?
Alright, to understand a bit easier is when you look at strata title, you just imagine your property is like your baby, right? When your baby is born, after they are born, they are supposed to be given a birth certificate,
Okay,
right?
assert to the property.
Correct.
Okay,
Right. So strata title is like your birth certificate for your property,
understand?
right? So if let's say your question was, if let's say a strata title is not issued, what is the effect, right? And why is it important?
Is important.
Right? So, from a practical perspective, which is also what we always face, is when a title is not issued, the owners, they will have to then, the documents between themselves and the developer and subsequent transactions would form the documents to prove ownership of your property,
Okay.
right? Because your title hasn't been issued.
Okay.
So what does it mean? Means if let's say today, Justin, you are the first purchaser, so you purchase directly from developer, you have your documents between developer, your first
The
SMP,
SMP.
between developer and yourself,
Correct.
and you gotten a loan with a bank.
Correct.
Right? So you have your loan documents.
Correct.
Then the next year you sell it to someone else.
To
right?
Suki, example.
To Suki, example. So she will then have to keep record of all your original documents between you, the developer, and the banks.
Okay.
That's for you, Suki, right? After that, when Suki then sells to me, for example, she will then have to sell it to me, right? So,
so
just
it's like
through-
a succession plan like that. A
Correct.
succession document.
yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So even just three of us, it may sound like it's easy, but imagine this whole transaction between you, Suki, and myself takes about 20 years. It is then very hard for individual owners to keep track of all these original documents, especially when their documents are not, when their purchase are not financed by bank, so their original documents are held by themselves. So that's the first challenge.
So there's no record with the bank. If let's say we wish to retrieve from the bank, is it?
If let's say you are financed under the bank, then usually the original documents will be with the bank.
Understand?
However, a lot of Malaysians, some of them are very rich. They purchase the property by cash.
Okay.
So all these original documents would then be held by themselves.
Does the land office, or commonly known as PTG,
Yep.
do they have a copy of these documents?
When your title hasn't been issued, the obligation is on the developer to keep track of the ownership of each individual parcel. That is why every time when you sell, you have to get the developer involved to get their confirmation on who is the current assignee, which is either the current purchaser or the current seller, and who are the banks which finance that property purchase.
Understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Luis,
Thanks.
what if I lost the birth cert or what you call the starter title?
That is, I mean, if you are talking about strata title, then it's easier because the title has been issued. But if you are talking about prior to getting your strata title, right, we can go back to that first. If you lost your original documents, right, that is something that we still face today and is a huge challenge. The reason is, if the developer is still around, it is still possible for them to have record of the ownership. However, you still have to make a police report, you still have to make declarations to say that you have lost your documents, because all these are actually still very important. We call it security documents.
So it's going to be very hassle if let's say these documents are not in record.
Yes.
Does the strata, example, let's say it's a strata scheme,
Yep.
so usually they will have the joint management body, the
Yep.
management corporation.
Yep.
Do they have a copy of these full records?
They will only have access from them by requesting to the developer.
Understand?
However, because the obligation is still on the developer, that's why the developer is the one that would have to have the record. However, they wouldn't have the original documents.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, how does individual strata title different from a master title?
The difference is because a master title, we can understand it as your individual landed title. right? Master title, why they label it as a master title is because it's a title to a development.
Okay.
So for ease of understanding, we call it a master title. And on this master title, that's when you build a building and you then separate it into each individual parcel unit. That is when they call it the strata title, which is according to the individual, either your unit, your floors, or if it's a landed strata, it's still your individual parcel number.
So what are the consequences if, let's say, the developer delay the issuance or the perfection of the strata role or strata title for individual parcel proprietors? So what are the consequences that the proprietors may face if, let's say, they do not have an individual title?
For this, there will be twofold. The first one is the consequences on the developer, because there has been an amendment on the act to differentiate the different timeline of completion of buildings and the time period that the developer then have to apply and apply for the strata title. However, even with this amendment in place, you'll still notice that there are still a lot of strata title that hasn't been issued, right? The reason is because the developer may have submitted the application. However, after submitting the application, there are still process to be done before the land office actually releases the strata title for each individual property. And that's when that delay would not come into the tabulation of time for the submission of the application. So that's why there are still properties which after many years you still don't get the title.
Normally, on average, how long that after we purchase the property, we will be expecting the strata title?
If we follow the current law for buildings which are newly developed, they are supposed to release they are supposed to issue a title immediately upon delivery of vacant possession, right? So that if that answer your question, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Means today, this one means to say the issuance of the individual title upon vacant possession. So means to say,
Together
if
with
let's say the developer sold the property, I say I'm a buyer, all right. I bought it maybe 3 years ago, so my property will be vacant possession maybe end of this year.
Yep.
So it's about 4 years time. So means to say the developer actually have 4 years time for them to complete the development, means the building, and also to ensure that the administrative of the strata title are all well prepared and issued to the registered owner who earlier signed the SMP. Is that the time frame that for the current practice?
I wouldn't say registered, but then it's to issue the title, because registration onto the parcel owners comes then from the individual parcel owner to complete this process, which is what they call the perfection of transfer and charge.
Okay. Means to say vacant possession, I still do not get my individual title, but there is a strata role ready for me to actually appoint a lawyer. So this lawyer usually will appoint any lawyers or how to do this perfection of title?
There is no there is no restriction on the lawyers that you engage. It's just there is a difference in skill fee if you engage your previous firm that handled your sales and purchase and subsequent firm that handles it. So to answer the question is you can engage any lawyers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
But normally I find, right, the developer already recommend a panel of lawyer to perfect the titles for us. Is that true?
Yes. So this is something that a lot of parcel owner face, is that they are sometimes given the misconception that they will have to fall back to this list of panel lawyers. Like I said, ultimately they have their right to then choose who they want
Okay.
to engage, as long as they have not appointed any lawyer. Because in some circumstances, they have already appointed the previous firm to also handle this perfection.
Okay.
Then you have to follow back who you appointed.
Okay. So that means the responsibility is still back to the owners. Even though the developer has prepared the strata role, the owners still have to make sure that they appoint a lawyer to perfect the title so that you will get your individual title.
Individual strata title.
Individual strata title.
Yeah.
Is there
Noted.
any legal consequences if the developer delay the perfections of the title?
On the developer side, if you're talking about delay in perfection of the title, last time there was a clause, there was a law to make sure that owners, once developer inform you that the title has been issued, you will then have to complete the transfer within 12 months. If not, there will be penalties
Penalties to who?
to the owners, because the developer has already gotten the strata title. It's the owners that did not.
Delay the perfection.
Yes.
Why is it? Because there is a very high cost on it.
Yeah, that is one of the concern, because a lot of purchasers, they are not informed about this subsequent process that they have to complete when they purchase the property from developer. In their mind, when I buy from a developer, whatever that I'm given as a benefit from the developer should already cover everything until I own the property. However, upon obtaining the keys and few years after getting the keys, they suddenly receive a letter from developer to say that title has been issued. Kindly engage your lawyer or choose the appointed lawyers to complete your registration. If not, what and what, right?
So for our audience, it's important that you have to check with your agent or the developer whether when your purchase price, does it include the MOT, means to say the memorandum of transfer. Is
The
that
stamp duty.
The stamp duty. So you have to check with the developer. Make sure that you are aware whether you need to prepare extra money during vacant possession to actually appoint a lawyer to pay the legal fees and also the stamp duty fees. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. So how about, so this Strata title will empower the owner in terms of their rights within the scheme.
The benefit of having your strata title would be, number one, I go back to the birth certificate issue. Imagine your child without a birth cert. Wherever you go, it's very hard to explain ownership. That's the first thing, right? So with your own strata title, you don't have to explain that you're the owner. The strata title itself would then be a proof of ownership. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, with the strata title, you remove the developer out of the picture when you deal with your property. So when you sell your property or when you want to refinance, you don't have to go to the developer to get their confirmation or even consent for a direct transfer or what. So
Understand.
yeah,
So the purchase will be directly deal with the land office
correct.
for the title perfection, for the title transfer.
Yes.
Sometimes I heard also that the property without this Strata title are being sold at a lower price. Is that true?
This one would then fall back to how the market and how the banks view these properties. Ultimately, it's still supply and demand. In the past, what we understand is there are many banks which will be more reluctant to finance property without strata title for a number of years upon getting the CCC or vacant possession. However, even during recent time, we do have transactions with banks agreeing to give finance for property that has no strata title even after more than 10 years, for example.
Okay. This is very insightful because a lot of owners are not aware of these consequences if
Yes.
let's say they do not have a title with them.
Yes, Justin, I think we need to take a break.
Sure.
And we will continue later. Okay, so please stay tuned with us. Welcome back to Strata Connect. What's the experts say? We still have Louis here with us to talk about the Strata title. Perhaps we can also go into property tenure, which we have the freehold, leasehold, and the Bumi lot. Louis, can you explain to us the difference between freehold and leasehold property?
Okay, for the difference between freehold and leasehold, mainly is during the alienation. When I say alienation, means if even the government or a developer gets the land from the state, they would then apply either to have the land with tenure or with a freehold tenure, right? So this one is the main part. And what's the difference between freehold and leasehold? Basically, freehold means that if you look at your title, it says pegangan selama-lamanya, right? And if it's leasehold, it will say pajakan for a period of how many years. So what's the difference between these two is, in the eyes of the public, most of them, they will be aware that for leasehold, the difference would be to apply for consent. Lor. Anything they want to do with the property, I need to get consent, right? This is the general view. However, there are also many freehold developments nowadays which also comes with restriction, which means you still have to apply for consent. So that's the part.
Can you name us these areas, example like freehold with restrictions that requires consent?
So far, I've seen two. One is in Mount Kiara area.
Okay.
Another one is near Bukit Jalil area.
Is the whole Mount Kiara or just maybe some of the parcels land that with this condition?
It would depend on the project itself. It's still based
Oh,
on parcel land.
okay.
Like the reason why I started off to explain the alienation part is because this is how the proprietor, the initial proprietor, gotten the land from land office. What is the arrangement and what is the condition that was imposed by the land office when they split the title and give you one, they call it master title or individual title.
Means to say some properties you are mine forever. Some properties is you are mine but with condition.
Yes.
And for the lease one is you are just mine temporary. Is that to summarize the types of title?
Yes, and also not forgetting that all lands are still belonging to the state.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So who holds control? The state holds control or the federal holds control on the land?
Land is still a state matter, so individual states still holds control over their own individual land matters.
Okay. Noted. Dr. Chan?
How does the leasehold tenure actually affect the owner in the Strata scheme as compared to this freehold?
The main issue that the owners will face is time. Ultimately, time would be equivalent to money.
True.
Right? So when you want to sell, when you want to transfer any dealings with I would say property with restriction, whether a freehold or leasehold, you will then have to deal with the land authority for them to give you the consent to transfer or to deal with the property. So that is the main concern or issues that will be faced in a, let's say, leasehold property because they have restriction. Right. On top of that would be the tenure itself. In Malaysia, in Strata, rarely we see a tenure that has expired because Strata has only came about in 1980s, right? So if you are looking about 99 years lease, most of it hasn't lapsed yet. However, with the reduction of tenure left, it will definitely then affect the property value to a certain extent.
I was also made understand that some of the industrial land, okay, the gazetted tenure is only 30 years or maybe up to 60 years. Is that true?
That one would then depend because, like I said, the state can give you a tenure of maybe 99 years. However, if let's say the developers, they want to sell a plot of property to you, if it's Strata, they can still choose a tenure if they want, but of course they will then have to get the approval of the land office on this approval.
How about the renewal of the leasehold tenure? If I'm under the Strata scheme, can I renew as the owner, or I have to depends on, meaning my whole condominium's majority to renew it?
Yeah. So this one, like I said, it hasn't been tested because no one has really renewed any lease for a Strata, from what I understand. That's why I can't really give you a clear answer on it. However, if we look at the general rule, it should be individual owners, you are entitled to renew your lease on your own because your Strata title is tied to your own name.
Example, I have a I have a property in a hometown. All right. The property lease was given 60 years, and now balance is about 20 years left.
Yep.
So, what is the latest timeline that I have to start performing the application of the renewal of the lease?
Usually, you can do it when the lease is there is no fixed time period, but usually when once it goes within 30 years, we will advise you to then renew the lease.
Okay.
There are a few reasons to it. The first thing is the longer you take to renew your lease, the higher the property, supposedly the property value will be. So that will come to a place that when you tabulate your premium renewal, it will also take into account the value of the property at the point of renewal.
Understand.
So, and on top of that would be a lot of our renewal, they are worried that the cost of renewal, because when I talk about the premium, right, they are thinking that if let's say I renew now, do I then have to pay for the premium immediately? The law actually allow parcel owners to actually renew, but don't have to pay the premium first.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Renew, but so there's no timeline, or upon that you dispose the property that time, when we have to file in the CKHT, is that when only they will come to chase us to pay the premium?
Yeah, so how the land office allow such option is because when you renew your lease, they will then register they'll register a registrar's caveat onto the title.
So there's a caveat.
Correct.
So as long as you do not settle off the amount, the premiums, then you are not allowed to transfer to the next purchaser.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
understand.
Okay. Besides the property value, what are some typical challenge that the owner face when their lease are actually approaching expiry?
Other than the renewal or value, of course, if let's say they choose not to renew, then the state has all the right to take back the property.
Okay. Can you explain to us what do we mean by Bumi lots, and how does it affect the property transaction within a Strata scheme?
Okay, for Bumi lot, this question has always been asked and can never be answered. But how Bumi lot came about, it all started due to the new economic policy, right? Because under the federal constitution, they only define what a Malay is, but there's no definition of what a Bumiputera or a Bumi lot is.
Okay.
So this Bumi lot came about through the the new economic policy, which then the government tries to increase the property ownership by Bumiputera, right? So in the past, they wanted to maintain 30%, but this one, it all depends on the state. Some states has more, some states have less Bumiputera quota.
Understand. So I was made understand also that most of the leasehold for any strata scheme development like high rise, usually is about 30 to 40% minimum. Okay,
Yes.
are reserved for the Bumiputera, and if the developer couldn't sell
Yes.
those units, then the developer could actually apply to convert into non-Bumi, but they have to actually pay a premium to compensate the states. Is that true?
That is correct. And to add on to that, it's not just by paying premium. They do have to show that they have tried to sell and is not able to sell it off.
Evidence that you have tried always to actually market the property, but it couldn't be transacted.
Yes.
So if let's say a non-Bumi, okay, they identify a Bumi unit.
Yes.
This is sub-sale, secondary market.
Yep.
So the non-Bumi buyer would like to purchase the Bumi parcel.
Yep.
Is it possible?
This one, we will then have to look into a few different types of property, right? Ultimately, I would say the reference point would be anything that you need to get the state consent, then the Bumi the Bumi to non-Bumi issue will become more significant. So for example, if a leasehold property is from a Bumi to non-Bumi, then you may face the situation because you have to apply for state consent,
Understand?
right? Then some people would think that if it's freehold,
Freehold
does it mean
Bumi.
then if it's freehold Bumi, does it mean that I don't have to be worried about it? If you are buying property which is low cost or medium cost, you still have a department called the LPHS, which is
Okay.
a department to apply for the low cost consent. So when you apply for that consent, the Bumi to non-Bumi quota issue will still arise.
Wow, this sounds very very technical over here.
Yes.
Correct.
But there is a process to actually manage this transaction. Is it? It's just that maybe the process is more complex and it takes a longer period. So it's whether the non-Bumi buyer willing to wait for this whole process. Is that true?
Yes, we have also done few transactions from Bumi to non-Bumi, and it's a leasehold property which also went through successfully.
Okay.
However, like you mentioned, the process would take longer, and it depends on how you appeal
Understand?
with the reasoning given by the seller.
The seller,
Yeah.
the Bumi seller.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
From your experience, do you think that most of the buyer actually know how to differentiate between all these category of property before they make the decisions to purchase the property?
Actually, the informations of all these terminologies has been shared a lot online. So even from my experience, when the client come to us, most of the time they are aware what is a freehold, what is a leasehold, what is a Bumi, whether they are buying a Bumi property or not. The only thing that they may not be there's a shift in perception because in the past, I think people are more willing to focus on buying freehold property,
Yes.
right? But there's a shift now that there is least concern about purchasing leasehold property, right?
I think mainly it's because on the value of the property, because leasehold are usually estimate 30% cheaper compared to freehold in the same location. So I think the main reason is also affordability, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, and of course, as what Lawyer Louis said, that maybe a lot of us, freehold, leasehold, to us is doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Correct. A lot of people say that we will not live up to 99 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's take a break and we will continue shortly.
Welcome back to Strata Connect, what expert says. So we would like to have the last two questions for Lawyer Louis. And Suki, maybe you can ask the questions.
Yes, maybe about some future outlook on the Strata. With more and more high-rise building, right, on these urban areas, how do you see the future of the Strata scheme in Malaysia?
I believe the Strata scheme is here to stay, and it will only develop over the years because when we look back at the history, the Strata Act has constantly been amended, revised, improved according to the time and needs of the society, right? And with owners being more and more knowledgeable about their rights and how they can exercise their rights, they would then form a committee which is well versed in how to manage their own building, which is also the intention of the government when they first started this Strata scheme, putting the owners in charge when the titles have been issued, right? That is why they go from a phase of JMB, then MC, so that there is a handover of knowledge for the MC to then manage it. So moving forward, I think what can be what we can see or hope for is more clarity of the law, especially on the responsibilities of the JMB and JMC, so that any layperson taking over the role, they would have a guideline on what and how to manage the building, right? On top of that, I do want to advocate for one thing, is that because a lot of GMC members that we meet, they are all doing this on a goodwill basis. They don't get paid.
Yeah, volunteer job.
Volunteer, and it's very hard. So that's one thing that I hope the future amendments can be done to provide more clarity on how GMCs can actually get allowance or get paid
It has
for
to
the
be fair for
services.
them spending their time contributing, as a volunteer. And some buildings may not be easy to manage also.
Correct.
Yeah, Justin, I think we need one episode to talk about this management operation.
Sure, Saki, no problem.
Okay.
We can talk a lot about management and maintenance later on.
Yes. Lawyer Luis, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights. Maybe last questions. What is your advice to the first-time buyer before considering buying a property in terms of the tenure and also the strata ownership?
My first advice is look for a trusted lawyer to to get them to at least look into your booking form before you sign whatever documents, because the common mistake that happen to any purchaser is they will only look for a lawyer after they sign the booking form, forgetting that the booking form itself is also a legal document which binds you when you already sign, right? I'm not talking about properties with the developer, because if it's under HDA, the purchasers are protected to a certain extent because the SMP is already prescribed by the government, by the law. However, for non-HDA properties or even your sub-sale property, right, your booking forms are not, it's a contract. It's a contract between you and the developer or you and the seller, right? So this contract, get a trusted professional to help you to look through and advise, right? Just for the benefit of the audience, I think the main thing that you would want to look at is to include condition precedent, right? Especially for purchasers, first home buyers, you'll be getting loan. Just make sure that your purchase is subject to loan approval, and you have to specify the percentage and what happens after that if your loan is not approved. Just get that clause clearly stated.
So for our viewers, it's very important to make sure that your booking form is vetted by a professional legal to protect your interest and also to make sure that your transaction later on is a smooth one.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I would say thanks a lot for Lawyer Luis. Today he has spent his time with us sharing his knowledge. Alright, and for Malaysian over here, we have a beautiful country and we do have a beautiful property landscapes over here. So we hope to bring more experts to come and share with us their knowledge and also insights for our viewers in the upcoming episodes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Luis.
Thank you, Luis. And
Thank you, everyone.
stay tuned with our Strata Connect episode, okay, so that we can actually enlighten you with more discussions about the strata.
So we will end the session today. So thank you so much. So please catch up with us from what experts says. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Di sini kita bersama satu komuniti mengurus strata penuh harmoni. JMBMC penyedia khidmat semua terhubung, tiada yang terlewat. Dengan teknologi mudah dan tulus, segala urusan jadi lebih lurus. So Strata Connect menjalani kata, memacu masa depan penuh harapan. Strata Connect, suara didengar, menyatukan semua jadi lebih gemilang tau. Vendor bersedia, tender telus, ilmu dikongsi, podcast berfokus, satu platform.